What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing another video of Mr. Ballen, and I know that it has been, we're at like 8 months since my last video recording back in December of 2024, and it's already 2025 in the 8th month, and just haven't really been, feeling doing any YouTube videos until lately. So that's why I haven't been doing much at all. But I've got this Mr. Ballen video, hoping to probably do more unless I just lose interest again. But I know I want to finish the Return to Bloody Nights that I don't believe I did finish, and the new, not very new, but recently new game called Shadows Awaken, which is kind of like a FNAF fan game, but scary. Although I guess every single one of them is always scary. So let's get into the video. Today we have Hospitals from Hell, and just to make sure everyone knows, it's only for mature audiences, so viewers beware any of those young ones that are maybe watching. But let's get into it. Only 15 minutes, maybe 20-minute video or so. Hope you enjoy.
Off-limits area inside of a prominent South African hospital. Now, at the time, no one really
I also did put captions just in case, because it kind of is
understood
easier
what
to
this
understand.
discovery meant, and so eventually people just kind of forgot about it and moved on. Until 2 years later, when another eerily similar discovery was made inside of another prominent South African hospital in one of their off-limits areas. I can't believe this story has not gotten more press because, one, it's recent, and two, the implications of these discoveries are mind-boggling. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, please put coyote urine in the like button's apple juice. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story.
Missing patients. That's not good for a hospital. That's a red sign.
Something
right
that really
away.
changed my perspective when it came to fashion was the difference between just getting dressed.
On October 4th, 2017, a 61-year-old father of 6 named Tatike Katsai arrived at a hospital in Stellenbosch, which is one of the richest towns in South Africa. Tatike, who lived in the area with his family, had been dealing with some stomach issues over the last several months, and so this day he was finally going in to have abdominal surgery to hopefully alleviate those issues. So, after entering the building, Tatike was checked in, and then before long he was transferred to the operating room where surgeons got to work on him. After the surgery was over, Tatike was transferred to a recovery room in the hospital where he was scheduled to stay for at least a couple of days so the doctors and nurses could watch over him while he recovered and make sure there was no complications from the procedure. And so, on the afternoon of October 4th, Tatike just kind of lounged around inside of his recovery room. He couldn't really do anything because of the incisions on his stomach, and so he mostly just laid in his bed, he watched TV, he relaxed, he ate, and then at some point some of his family members came into the hospital and they visited with him as well. By the end of that day, the day of his surgery, Tatike was definitely sore from the incisions, but overall he was in good spirits, and to the medical staff it seemed very likely that his surgery was a success. Early the next morning, at around 5:15 a.m., one of the nurses in the hospital went to Tatike's room to check on him. And when she went inside, Tatike was awake, he was alert, he seemed totally normal. And so after a brief conversation, the nurse told Tatike that she was just going to get him some fresh linens to make up his bed. And so Tatike nodded a thank you to her, and then the nurse, she turned away from Tatike, who's in his bed. She stepped out of the one door in the room into the hallway, she grabbed fresh linens off of a cart, and then she turned back around and went back into Tatike's room, except now Tatike was not in his bed. So the nurse immediately thought, okay, well then Tatike must have gone into his bathroom because the door was shut.
That's
he must be in the bathroom. And so, just kind of reflexively, the nurse walked over to Tatike's now empty bed and replaced the linens. And then when she was done, she just looked at the bathroom door inside of his room, expecting Tatike to come outside any minute. But after a couple of minutes passed and Tatike had still not come out of the bathroom, the nurse decided to go over and just knock. And so she walked over, she knocked on the bathroom door and just kind of called out, hey, is everything everything okay in there? But there was no answer. And so the nurse eventually just tried the handle, and when she saw it was open, she called out that she was coming inside. She opened up the bathroom door, and it was empty. And so the nurse, she whipped her head around and looked back out at the room where Tatike should have been, and she saw, he's not on the bed, he's not under the bed, he's not anywhere in this room. Where could he have possibly gone? And she's thinking to herself, the only door out of this room is into the hallway, the same door that she had used to go out and get the linens. And if somehow Tatike had ran out of that door in the few seconds that her back was turned from Tatike, she certainly would have heard him or seen him. Because again, she was right outside the door and only outside of his room for a couple of seconds. Not to mention the fact Tatike has major incisions on his stomach and could barely stand, let alone walk or run. And so, totally baffled, this nurse ultimately left the room and went and told her superiors.
That's strange. Just got incisions, can't even run. And
thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. In 20 This hospital would immediately begin looking for Tatike on the grounds of the hospital, but they would do it kind of quietly. They wouldn't call Tatike's family to tell them that, hey, we can't find him, nor would they call police. And some have speculated that either one, the hospital did not think this was an emergency and they would quickly find Tatike and that everything would be fine, or two, the hospital was just so embarrassed at the idea that they lost a patient, they didn't want anyone to know, and so that's why they didn't tell anyone. Regardless, the hospital would search for Tatike all day on the 5th, the day he went missing, and they wouldn't find him. And then the next day, the 6th, the hospital again would spend the entire day quietly searching everywhere in the hospital, but they wouldn't find him again. And so finally on the next day, the 7th, so 48 hours after Tatike had just kind of vanished inside of his room, the hospital would reach out to Tatike's family and they would say to them, hey, is Tatike home with you guys? And the family was like, no, he's supposed to be with you. And so the hospital would say, well, he left 2 days ago, so we don't know where he is. And so Tatike's family is horrified, not only that they were totally left in the dark, but they would find out over the course of this conversation that the hospital had not even contacted the police yet. And so the family, they reached out to the police, and then later that day, the family would meet the police at the Stellenbosch hospital, and then a very public search of the property would ensue to look for Tatike. However, again, no one could find him. Authorities would continue to search both the hospital and also the neighboring area outside of the hospital over the next couple of days, but after they continued to find absolutely nothing, the search began to wind down. And so Tatike's devastated family was left with absolutely no idea what to think or what to do. Fast forward to October 20th, so 15 days after Tatike had gone missing. And on this day, the 20th, there was a construction crew at this hospital in Stellenbosch doing some renovations. And at some point on this day, one of the workers had to climb into the ceiling of one of the floors of this hospital. Is he going to be in the ceiling? Now, the space above the ceiling is this tight, cramped space, almost like an attic. It's very big and wide. It's like the whole length of that floor. And really, the only people that would ever go into the ceiling are construction workers or other authorized personnel that needed to do work. It's not a place that the public would ever go into. But when one of these workers went up into the ceiling, he had a headlamp on and he's kind of looking around, he's looking for what he needs to do up there, and at some point he turns his head and his light illuminates a person sitting in the corner far away from him, way up against the side in this tiny little attic space. And it would turn out it was Tatike, and he was deceased. The hospital had absolutely no clue how Tatike could have gotten up there. Not only is it obviously not a publicly accessible area,
you probably
but
have to,
the actual...
From the looks of it, you'd have to... Unless it's a ladder that they're just not showing, you probably have to... Yeah, it's probably a ladder, and he wouldn't even be able to... If he can't walk, run, or barely even stand alone, there's not a chance he's climbing a ladder and squishing himself all the way
The
over
way
there.
to get up into the ceiling, the door that leads up into the ceiling, is very difficult to find. And even if Tatike found this entrance into the ceiling, it would have been nearly impossible for him to
With all the
actually get
incisions he's
into the
got up
ceiling.
there.
Because
And
again,
would
this
wedge his
guy
way
has serious
over
incisions
to
on
the
his
side.
stomach from the surgery he got. He could barely sit up, he couldn't really walk, so the idea of him climbing and pulling himself up
he had
into
to
the
climb?
ceiling just
There's
seems
no ladder.
impossible. Then there was the very strange autopsy
There's not a
results.
chance he could
Now,
do that
the full
unless he
report
broke
has
all of
not
his
been made
incisions
public,
off and
but
removed the pain.
Tatike's family had a consultation with the hospital after the autopsy was complete, and they would go to reporters and talk about what the hospital told them. And apparently, the hospital told the family that Tatike did not die from complications from his surgery, and they heavily insinuated that Tatike did not die from natural causes. Something happened to him, and
What?
the hospital had no idea what this something
So
was.
he didn't
and
die from a surgery. He didn't die from natural causes. What could he have died from in that attic or just anywhere else inside the hospital?
That's what killed him. And the hospital also told the family that Tatike likely was dead before he went up into the ceiling. Meaning someone or something killed Tatike,
died
and then
before he was
someone or
even up
something
there?
placed him in the ceiling. Again, this is just from the family going to reporters and talking about their discussion with the hospital. The hospital's only official statement has basically been that they have cooperated with the family and they don't really know what happened to Tatike. Now, of course, this is a very strange story,
That is
but
strange,
it gets
very
even
strange.
weirder. On May
He dies in the attic all the way at the back somehow, even though he's got incisions from a surgery. He can't walk. He shouldn't be able to really walk by himself. He can't barely stand up. He can't run. He can't do anything to get away from the nurse he was at the start. Then he found out that he died before he was even in the ceiling.
10th, 2019, so about a year and a half after Tatike was found deceased in the Stellenbosch hospital ceiling, a 53-year-old father of 4 named Sandile Sabia arrived at another hospital in South Africa. It was in a city called Durban, which is considered to be one of the nicest and wealthiest places in South Africa, similar to Stellenbosch. Sandile was a builder, and he had been working on a house when he had fallen and broken his leg. Specifically, he broke his femur bone, the bone that runs from your hip down to your knee, the big
Feeling it.
single
I'm feeling
bone
it.
in your thigh. So just for reference, if you break your femur,
Probably can't
you
walk.
can't walk. So, with some assistance from friends and family, Sandile hobbled his way into this hospital in Durban, and he began to receive care. 2 days later, on May 17th, Sandile was still in the hospital, still recovering from this broken femur, when his cousin came to visit him. The cousin said Sandile seemed totally normal, and that during this visit, Sandile told the cousin that after the cousin left, Sandile was going to be transported from this hospital to another hospital nearby, where he was going to get an x-ray of his leg, as well as talk to another orthopedic surgeon. But apparently, after this cousin left from this visit, the doctors at the Durban hospital walked into Sandile's room to take him and transport him to this other hospital, and
he was
Sandile was not in his room. Now, this hospital in Durban was known for their very tight security, and so right away, their reaction was very different.
There's more of a reason why he shouldn't be, why it's so weird that he's gone missing.
Than the
Such a
Stellenbosch
tight
hospital's
security that they're
reaction.
known
This
for
hospital immediately contacted authorities and said,
And
we are
actually
missing a
do, they
patient,
immediately
and they
contact.
began a very public search of their hospital for
There's no way
Sandile,
he's gone
but
missing within
they
this
couldn't
time.
find him. On May 18th, so 6 days after
Unlike the last hospital, they didn't wait. They called him immediately as soon as they found out he was gone, after they couldn't find him. And he's still not able to be found.
Sandile
crazy.
disappeared, the hospital in Durban began to smell this horrible stench coming from one wing of their hospital. And so hospital workers would track the stench to a janitor's closet, and when they opened it
Janitor's
up,
closet?
they saw this black liquid dripping out of the ceiling, and the liquid was coming from Sandile's decomposing body that was
Ugh.
located in the ceiling. Sandile's autopsy
How did
would
he
be
get in the
carried out
ceiling?
very quickly. However,
And
the
right there,
results of
too.
that autopsy have never been made public, and Sandile's family has not commented on the results of this autopsy. As of today, all we know is that within a 2-year period, 2 seemingly ordinary South African men, who
Tied in
both
the
could
roof,
either not
in the
walk at
ceiling.
all or who could barely walk because of their physical injuries, somehow snuck out of their hospital rooms totally undetected
Got
by
into the
staff,
ceiling
and then
and died.
wound up dead in the hospital ceiling. ceiling. Some say the men really did somehow sneak out of their own accord.
The guy with the broken femur can't even walk. He's got a broken femur. He can't walk. How is he going to be able to get himself all the way to the janitors or just in the ceiling in general? He can't walk. The other guy
decided to
can't
go into
barely
the
walk
ceiling,
either.
and that's what happened. Others say both men
Why
were
would they decide to
murdered
go in the
and
ceiling?
then placed into the ceiling, and still others think these two cases are the best examples of something called spontaneous teleportation, which is the hypothetical phenomenon where a human suddenly disappears and then
teleports
almost
somewhere
instantaneously reappears in another location. But for now, there is no official explanation, so those are all just theories. And so it's up to you to decide what you believe.
I mean, how would it be murder if the second hospital has very tight security? How would that happen? I mean, I don't even remember how long they've gone, but I know it wasn't that long for where he would be murdered. And there's also no traces of any blood, other than him decomposing.
So that's going to do it. If you got something out of today's story and you haven't done this
So that's interesting. Two guys can't walk, barely can walk, if walking at all, end up in the ceiling dead in a hospital. Two different hospitals as well. One of them probably could have happened because of how long they took to even do anything that would search for him or such. And then the second one that has a very tight security that they're so well known for it, meaning that they're probably the most trustworthy and when it comes to security. But then this happens, and they're missing, dead in the ceiling, in a janitor's closet, which is weird. But that is today's video. That's all I got for today. And for now, I'm hoping to be able to do some. I also just realized that I did get this game called Plants vs. Zombies Fusion, which has got a lot of stuff. I've kind of already got into it. Just like completed the first 45 levels of it. But I'm hoping to be able to play some of this on camera and do this with you guys as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe if you want more, and make sure to turn on notifications so you guys never miss, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.